Bit of a change of topic for our next session, but one that's equally popular at the moment. Lots of questions and discussion around DORA and its implementation for operational resilience. And I'm delighted to welcome Ketan Patel from Brillio, who's going to bring us up to date with developments in this area. So welcome, Ketan, and over to you.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Firstly, good morning, everyone. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak to you all about DORA, about the impact on operational resilience currently today. That's the buzzword within a lot of the financial institutions within the UK, especially, but primarily within the EU. So today I'm going to be talking to you about how DORA and how service management have a relationship that we in the service management industry need to probably take a little bit more interest in, because it's going to impact us further down the line when DORA comes into fruition in January 2025. So I'm just going to click through the slides here. So this is what I'm going to be talking about. It's slightly bulky, but rest assured I'm not going to be going through detail on every single slide. Some of it's going to be scripted because I don't want to create ambiguity between what I'm trying to say and what I'm trying to put forward. So there will be some elements that sound scripted, which it is, but some is going to be free flow as per the slides, as per I go through the slides. But a bit about Brillio quickly. Brillio, you may have not heard of within the UK market, especially, but Brillio procured Cloud Stratex, which you may have known of prior to last year, March. And we are now part of the Brillio company, spread across the globe, 6,000 plus employees spread across different regions, different parts of the world, and have a very big footprint in a lot of the financial institutions across each of those regions. But the practice I work in, which is the enterprise service management practice, which looks at all process flows within the organization from a service management viewpoint, this kind of goes through what we do. So it's a beautiful model, which kind of got me attracted to the idea of working for Brillio Cloud Stratex, is the idea of knowing what the problem is, and then providing the actual client, providing the organization a way of finding those successful outcomes from a pulse through to implementing the processes and handing that off to the organization in a clear, concise manner, so that they're not having to look for a new partner within 6 months of being given something to kind of run with. A bit about me. Lovely photo there. So my name's Ketan. I've been a service management SME for the last 20 years since graduating from university, but kind of worked from doing through to now supporting other clients in trying to achieve what they want to achieve, primarily around asset management, because that's my key passion topic, but service management as a whole, first line, second line, incident problem change, through to the current CSDM models within ServiceNow, from a tooling perspective. So this is what we do today, and this is what I do. Right, resilience. A few highlight points here. What you see on your screen are big data breaches within the last, well, on the left hand side in the table, big data breaches in the last year. And as you can see, the top one, 3.8 billion records being taken from a cybersecurity incident for Darkbeam. These are purely this is information that I sourced from the internet, from the site below, but it kind of shows you that we as service management, service management community or organizations, we're not protected by any sort of golden blanket that makes us impenetrable for those that want to harm the organization or take data or give us or put us over a barrel through ransomware. I mean, on the left and on the right hand side, you can see SolarWinds, you can see major businesses like Twitter and even Microsoft, all being victims of cyber attacks, and little to their knowledge or unknown fact that we're protected, we're fine, we're happy, we're good, we are, no one's ever safe. So what is operational resilience? So operational resilience is the ability to kind of make sure that we can prevent ourselves, adapt, learn from, and recover from any operational disruptions that we may foresee or we have had in the past. So the strong links, it all links back to the operational resilience framework that the organization may have. But you kind of have to kind of see what needs to be protected as part of the operational resilience framework. From my experience over the last 12, 18 months, it's all about what's critical to the business, right? We in the IT world, we think we are there to support the business values, the business outcomes. How can we support them? What are they? And it's key to understand what those critical business functions are, but critical business areas need to be. And that's through managing robust testing, knowing what you've got, mapping them accordingly, making sure that everyone in the organization is there, in the IT world especially, is working towards a conjoined way to make sure that all the data we do have is actually painting the correct picture. But why? Why operational resilience? It reduces costs in the long run, right? It improves productivity because there is very little downtime if something did happen, or reduced downtime anyway. We've got a better way of coming back to life if something was to go down, if we were to have a breach, or if the organization was to have a breach. We have a way forward. We have a way to come back to life. And as a service management SME, the idea is that we're part of that journey. We're part of the enablement of the organization to get ready for any eventuality and to provide long-term sustainability, the last point there. Challenges with resilience. Now, these are challenges that you'll see throughout the screen. It's executive sponsorship, potentially, governance and risk, management of supply chains, and the link between business and IT. And that's the big thing I've noticed over the last 24 months is the view of the business have a view, IT have a view of supporting that business, but there is that gray area in between as to what does that look like. Understanding what IT infrastructure supports what business process, and it's not from a business viewpoint or from an IT viewpoint. It's from a regulatory need and regulatory point. Right. So going back to the point, what is DORA? So DORA is the Digital Operational Resilience Act. As you can see from the explanation, I will read it. Its aim is to strengthen operational resilience across the financial sector, ensuring continuity of critical services and mitigating cyber threats. With a wide scope and stringent requirement, DORA is set to bring about a significant shift in the operational strategies of financial institutions and service providers across the EU. And I put a little trigger warning there, from all the research that I've done over the last 18 months and from what I've learned within the organizations. It looks like it's going to be a blueprint that may be used in other financial organizations or financial authorities across the globe, not just within the EU. But what does that actually mean, right? So in Europe alone, there are close to 5,500 different financial institutions, from banks through to pension bodies, through to stock exchanges, through to various different types of businesses that have a financial implication or have a financial element to it. And the whole point is that the EU is trying to make sure that if we as an as a European bloc, we're not in that we're not in there. However, we have financial institutions in the UK, so therefore we have that operate within the EU. Therefore, we have a due care to make sure that we are following the same suit. So how is DORA kind of broken up? So DORA is broken up into 5 key pillars, and the 5 key pillars are driven around risk management, incident management, resilience and testing, information sharing, and third-party risk assessment. All of these do probably sound similar or familiar to yourselves if you have a view of what ISO 27001 as a framework has set out from NIST through to cybersecurity within organizations. And my next slide will actually show that. But all these are key areas in which how an organization has to comply within the DORA framework. Each of these areas, each of the 5 areas, has a number of controls, measures, and requirements from the organization to make sure that as an organization, you have to have a risk management framework, you have to have an incident management framework with the tooling and the processes and the documentation ready. You have to have resilient testing, making sure that you have a program in place, making sure that you know what you're doing with your test results and how do you progress those test results to make sure that you're continually testing on a periodic basis and not just when organizations go live within next year, January. Information sharing between organizations. How safe is your passage between one organization to the other? Is there a secure connectivity or connection between the two, etc.? But where are we within the DORA framework? So the DORA framework was established back in 2020. This year, if we go down to January 2024, they've produced the first level set of documentation around the technology standards, and all these are now they've been packaged up for organizations to now go and make sure that they've done their gap analysis, understood where their gaps are, and to bridge those gaps. Now, DORA goes live in January 2025, and there is an expectation that all of these 5 areas have to meet their controls. Otherwise, there will be potential financial risks involved. But I mean, I was asked this many a time. What is there a difference between what ISO 27001 is and what is and DORA? And having worked in 27001 briefly, in another part of the world where we had to manage cybersecurity from a vehicle industry perspective, and see whether, as a vehicle industry, are we set up for cyber threats? Are we set up for cyber security issues? And in the vehicle industry, there's a regulation called TISAX, and TISAX follows the same sort of process as DORA does. But I'll go through the similarities with you. Geographically, what are the 2 differences? ISO 27001 is predominantly a NIST US centric framework, whereas DORA is very much a EU financial entities, is an application for EU financial entities. However, that could potentially grow. ISO 27001 is advisory. However, DORA is mandatory. And incident reporting. So incident reporting for 27001 is again advisory and left to the organizations to devise a plan of how will they go about notifying regulators, etc., for incidents that may occur. However, with DORA, there is a standardized approach for reporting and it's prescribed. However, the key similarities, though, it's an overarching goal to achieve the same thing, is to look at risk management. It's to also look at continual improvement. But yeah, in essence, ISO 27001 is a solid foundation for DORA compliance. So if you're working on one, you're halfway down the line and you are in line to kind of meet DORA requirements, and vice versa. Service management, though, evolution of service management. Where are we today in that kind of bandwidth of what DORA is required of organizations, and where are we supporting? Our evolution within the service management industry has kind of grown, right? We have to be more business centric, aligned to business needs, and understanding what those business strategies need to be, being there to question the right things. Are you as a service owner or as a service management SME, someone wants to produce or bring in a new service, you're there to question. Do you see a viable future for this product? You ask these kind of relevant questions, and that's a good thing to do, because when you're talking to the business and you want to make and they want to produce something, the questions need to be asked. Otherwise, it's a very, very short-sighted view. And that's where we kind of provide that value. But if I go back into where as a service management SME kind of helps within the five pillars of DORA, we're spread across very thickly. We have a big impact across all the areas around our ITSM practices, processes, etc. For example, ITAM, you've got all of them. We're impacted from a risk assessment perspective. For licensing, for example, incident management, you can't report anything if you don't know what you've got, for argument's sake. And also third party. We need to understand what we've got, who our third party suppliers are, making sure that they meet under the DORA regulations as well. So we are, as a service management capability, we are spread across all of our core pillars against DORA. And I'll give an example, right? So this is an example around service mapping. What you see here are 4 statements that look at what is required from a DORA perspective. Now, DORA requires entities to map their information and technology systems to critical assets and critical services. Then there's another statement that says define critical and important functions. So if many of you in the financial world or within the UK especially, IBS. IBS is a big term used around important business services. How are important business services mapped in your current tool set, current organization, so that if you were to kind of run through a scenario, how are you able to understand what are my critical servers, critical assets linked to all my critical functions and services? And I've kind of given a very high level view of the actual word for word text statement for each of the 4, and also provided a link as to where they come from within the regulation. But if we were to kind of break that down into a practical term, right? So in terms of a design perspective, the principles really rely on the full stack from the business through to IT. In many organizations, you'll have a enterprise service management tool or an enterprise management tool that maps your business services with your business applications. Then there's a little bit of a gap or an air gap between how are those business applications then represented in our service management tool set. Therefore, those business applications, application services, for example, how are they linked to infrastructure CIs? And that bit we're okay with, or some organizations are okay with when it comes to service mapping and discovery and understanding what infrastructure CIs are linked to which applications. But it's that gap in the middle. And this kind of shows where at the top level, where you've got that where you've got a business service created in a enterprise application, that data could flow through with the relationships all the way down to critical, important, or critical infrastructure CIs from a CMDB perspective, and can answer some of those questions from a controls perspective to say, can you provide proof or demonstrate that you can actually show all critical assets, critical CIs linked to business applications and therefore to critical business services. And that kind of flow through will provide that evidence and that proof. But on the flip side, we sometimes forget about the softer side of it, the governance, the reporting, the documentation. And in recent months, it's been about the standards. What's the differentiation between what a standard is and what a policy is? Standards are in which we can prescribe a little bit more detail as to what controls will the organization comply by as a must statement, and then you've got controls in there that the organization will comply with a should statement, as in a future scope. And this is where we need to be. This is where we advise our clients to be more prescriptive in what can we evidence today, and what we like to evidence in the future, so that when January comes along, we're not in a position where we're tripping up over ourselves to say we will demonstrate this, but we're falling short, and just to make sure that we're capturing all that information. Takeaways. I think it's all about taking a step back, right? Understanding where the organization needs to be, and what do they want to achieve from a DORA perspective. IT is normally there at the table, but when it comes down to the lower levels, we tend to kind of be the last ones to hear about, right, okay, we found these gaps, we now need to fix those gaps. And from a service management perspective, it will be good to kind of get in there in that conversation now, because there's only 6 months left, to see how we as a capability can support those decisions and the roadmap on how we can actually remediate those actions.